Hello and welcome to another episode of Ken Training, where we try to give you the education that you need to tackle projects like this on your own. Okay, today's project, what we're going to do is, you see these front entry doors behind me? And let me show you right there, I think you can see that in the viewfinder, how we have got sunlight coming through underneath. And the reason why we have that is because the threshold is shot. Now I'm going to show you that right now. Okay, so opening up the door, here's your this, and as you know, it's a double door here, but we only have half of it right here. Here's the problem. What's happening is this aluminum threshold has sunken down, probably because it's just, I don't know, low quality type of a threshold. A brand new one's going to run me like about $90, and it's not exactly the same height. This particular one, I don't think they manufacture anymore. This one here is 4.5 inches by 1 inch high. Okay, and so I can't get the exact same one. I can get one close to it, but instead of being 1 inch high, it's only 1/2 inch high, which means I'd have to, adjust this down another 1/2 inch. You can see where my screws are at compared to where I'm at, so if I have to lower that another 1/2 inch, it's going to be kind of tight. The screws aren't going to be grabbing much wood here. So with that in mind, I would like to see if I could salvage this. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this threshold off and start seeing what the underside of this thing looks like. Well, it just goes to show you that nothing's ever easy. So what's happening is the threshold, I was able to pop it out here, but now it's hitting the door, so I'm going to have to take the door off the, remove the door so that I have enough leeway here. I was trying to pull this thing out here, which is the door seal, but they used flathead screws and they are all rusted out. I couldn't even, they were just stripping right out right in front of me. So I couldn't try to, I couldn't take out the door seal. So that's an issue. I'd have to grind off each one of these heads and do it. It's just, it's a process. It's not a 5-minute job by any means. Here's the, what the threshold looks like so far, but I gotta pull this door out right now. Alright, so you can see why the threshold has failed. The threshold quality is absolutely horrible. By the way, I got a bunch of spider nests in here and everything, and it is extremely dirty underneath here. They put this track here, like a flashing, which is cool, as long as this is slightly pitched out of the house. That'd be appropriate. But basically what I'm going to do is just let me get a broom, get this all cleaned off, and let me see what we're working with. Alright, so here's what the threshold looks like with everything cleaned off. Just cement, I guess. Nothing too exciting. Let me go and show you. I set myself up here with a temporary workbench, and I also cleaned off all the spider webs and everything that was inside of here. I cleaned off this flashing, that aluminum flashing that was on the edge of the threshold there. Now this threshold I thought was 1 inch. It's taller than I thought. Let me show you exactly how tall it is. Now that I've got it on a flat workbench here, taking my tape measure, going like that, it is 1 3/4 inch tall. Now originally I purchased 3 of these items here, which I had never used before for aluminum. I've never welded aluminum or brazed aluminum, but I've got some brazing and welding rods here, and this is specifically for aluminum. They're a little over $4, and they come with 2 sticks of aluminum per package. I bought 3 packages. So my intention was to flip this over, find the seam, which is right here, weld it up, nice and solid welded, and then put it back. I got to admit, I am disappointed in the fact that there is no backing here. So if I was to do that, I would like to build something possibly out of wood. You're not supposed to use pressure treated wood and aluminum, so maybe I would just use regular wood or composite wood, so I can have some type of a filler in here, so this way when you put pressure down here, it's not just, you know, flexing like it is. I don't, this whole design with no ribs in there, I am not a fan of. Very, very cheap. So okay, doing a search on the internet, and this here is obviously at the Home Depot's website. I found this threshold here, which is the tallest one that I could acquire, which was the closest dimensions I could acquire as well. So this is 1 1/8 by 36 inches. Now my particular door is 60 inches, so I'm going to have to buy 2 of them and cut one of them to fit. And so I'm going to have a seam, but I can't avoid that. Price is good, $15.98, so $16 times 2. So, and notice the construction. The construction has the ribs for the strength that I'm looking for. Now, as far as the dimensions go, the overall dimensions just say 1 1/8 by 36. But what you need to do is what I did was I clicked on specifications on the tab that they have on the website, and here is, oh boy, if I can show it to you. Alright, the camera is losing focus. That says 3 3/4 of an inch. 3 3/4 of an inch by 1 1/8 of an inch that way. So let me go show you what that looks like. Alright, so you see the people who installed the floor, they notched out for that threshold, that threshold that was existing. Now I put this piece of flashing back. Let me show you. With the door closed, if I take my tape measure and put it right there up against the wood where the old threshold was, close the door, let me show you what that looks like. Okay, this is where 3 3/4 of an inch is going to come out. It's not all the way to the end, which as you can tell is 4 1/4 of an inch, but it's only a 1/2 of an inch back from that. So I think it's going to fly. So instead of me trying to put energy into trying to fix this threshold here by welding it up and trying to build some type of an internal support with ribs or whatnot, instead of me going through all this process, I am going to go with the intention of replacing this threshold and with a new threshold. Okay, we're back to this project. There is the old threshold right there that we need to remove. First thing I need to do is to take this door and take it off of its hinges and set it to the side. Here I have purchased a few items from the Home Depot. So these 2 here are the same, and these 2 here are the same. These 2 here I purchased in store at the Home Depot for like $11 each. These 2 over here I purchased online. You could not get them in the store for about $15 each. Now look at the difference. This one here has got the word heavy duty written in it. Boy, I like that. So definitely we are going to be installing this because I want something heavy duty. I'll show you the side profiles of both in just a second. The distance is 3 inches by 3 feet long. This one over here, where are you? Where are you? It's 3 1/4. Look at that side profile there on the pictorial, but 3 3/4 by 3 feet long, or 36 inches. This one says it seals up to 1 inch long, and oh, here's another important part here. The total height of this says it's 1 1/8. The total height of this one over here, the more inexpensive one, is only 1 inch. So this is not much, but it's 1/8 of an inch difference. Here's the two on a side-by-side comparison. Hold on, the package is slipping away from me. They both do have that ribbing on the inside, although it's a little hard to see it on the pictorial. Since I'm going to be returning these, I don't want to go too crazy. Here it is underneath. Sorry for the plastic here. But anyways, this one here is the one that I'm planning on installing. Then I'm going to go with the more heavy-duty one, obviously. And also this one here better suits my installation for the sizing. Now, this here, this door sweep or bottom portion of the door came off of this door here. I took it off from the bottom because this is what it looks like underneath, and I knew that it was falling apart. So I wanted to see if I could just buy a new gasket, slip out the old gasket, put a new gasket in. Nope, I had to go and buy the whole thing, and luckily they actually sold it. So here is what they call it, the U-shape drip cap with vinyl insert bottom. And let's see here, seals gaps up to 1/2 of an inch. It's 1 3/4 by 3 feet long. And here's the two side by side, so you can see that I'm absolutely going to have to trim this down when I get to it. No problem. We'll do that. But this was like $13. So so I want to get going with this project. These two items here, I'm going to set those aside because I don't want to get confused. So I'm just going to put these off to the side. These are the products that we're going to be dealing with today. First thing I want to do is get this door off of the hinges. Alright, so what I did is I took the brand new gasket out of the new package that goes underneath, and I just slipped out the old gasket and then slipped in this one, so this way I didn't have to cut the new one, since there was no problem with this size. It was just this bottom gasket was breaking apart. It was just falling apart here, as you can see. So I did that to make this whole. I didn't want to trim this down yet because sometimes when I install these, I like these to be sticking out. So I'm going to do a final trim on that later. But for now, I just put it in here, and I'll just do a little measuring. Now, here you can see the side profile of the new Threashold compared to the old Threashold. Now, the new Threashold is shorter by, I don't know, like 3/4 of an inch. And what I'm trying to figure out, so I have I'm just playing around with sizing here, and I got a piece of plywood here underneath. You see, now then the next question is do I want to go with this gasket or without this gasket? Because if I go with the gasket, when the door comes across to make its close like this, what's going to happen is this rubber is going to be intersecting this rubber, and that potentially is going to be like kind of fighting me. See, the old Threashold didn't have any rubber here. The screw heads were exposed. Now, I can do that here just simply by not putting this on, and then when this threshold, the bottom, the door bottom, I'll call it, when the door bottom comes on, it comes on to this nice and smoothly. Okay, so this way I don't have that that problem. So I'm trying to determine if that's what I want to do. Now if that's the case, I'm going to have to build this up, because right now you can see the bubble on that when without the without using the rubber. And if I go with the rubber, I've got a positive bubble on there, but because the door is going to squash it down slightly, the bubble will come into play just perfectly. So I got to just play around with this to see how I want to do it. In any regards, it looks like I'm going to need to shim the bottom of this new threshold with some type of wood or something, wood, metal, something, in order to elevate it up. This is aluminum, so I cannot use pressure treated lumber. Pressure treated lumber should not come in direct contact with aluminum. So I could potentially use regular lumber, prime it, and then paint it with an exterior grade brown paint to match the brown exterior of the threshold, so it'll kind of blend in with the overall threshold. So I'm just playing around with this now to figure out the best way to handle this. Well, the more I'm thinking about this project and how I'm going to have a piece of wood underneath here, and I'm going to have to cut a piece of wood here, and then how I'm better off not having a piece of rubber here and a piece of rubber here underneath the bottom of the door. The door is existing, so I can't because this threshold here, what it wants is it wants the bottom of the door to just rest right on it. That's how it wants to do the sweep, just like that. But my door is going to be too short, because these doors are already installed, they're already pre-cut, and I can't extend that longer. So what I was thinking, since I have to cut a piece of wood here, why don't I just abandon this idea? And originally I was thinking, well, maybe if I just took a 2x4 and cut that, but you'll notice that a 2x4 is too small. It's way too big. It's too small of a gap. But a 2x6 is too long, but that's no problem. I can rip that down on my table saw right here, no problem. The height is only about 1/8 of an inch less than the height of this threshold, the existing original threshold. So I got a feeling I'm going to be pretty close with this piece of wood. I can round off my corners here and here after I trim that down to the right size. I can round off the corners so that it's not a hard edge, and I think this will work out really good. And it's, I don't have to worry about the integrity of a 2x6 because it's a solid piece of wood. So the original problem that I'm having with this is how it's a hollow cavity underneath, and how this is all spongy when you try to when you depress on it. See how just it's crap, you know, it's nothing. But if I have this there, I don't have to worry about any of that. This can withstand everything. And then I can prime this and paint this brown, and actually I can have something here. Now it turns out that I won't need the threshold, so I gotta go to the Home Depot and go pick up a 2x6 that is the I don't know, 60 inches long, or whatever the length of this thing is, and start working on it to try to get it to fit. So I gotta work on that right now. Okay, I just got back from the Home Depot. I got some wood screws. I got some sanding discs here, which are not meant for wood, but I plan on using it for wood anyways. And I got some paint here to which I did a color match to match this color, the color of the bottom door sweep. I purchased 2x6 by 8 feet long. I'm going to get my table saw out, and I'm going to start chopping that thing down to resemble something that looks like this. So I'm going to go to town right now to transform that into something that looks like this so I can get it down. Alright, so here I am just doing the rough end. I got the wooden new threshold in here. As you can see, I kind of mitered around the corners there. I had to pull out the weather stripping here, so because it was the way that they originally had it cut, it wouldn't fit. So rather than take out the entire strip here, I just took out as many screws as necessary, bent it over. On this side over here, the screws are these flatheads, and they're just completely, I don't know what the word is, that you can't, they're just in there solid. They just strip out every time you try to take them out. So I ended up just having to use the grinder in order to grind them out. That's why it kind of looks like that. And then I just took out the part that was protruding coming out of the door jamb. So I just got the frame in here, just kind of loose. I got it. It's not screwed down. It's just sitting here. I still have a lot more work to do. First thing I want to notice is just putting a level on it. Look at the bubble. Now, that means that the water is going to go into the house. Absolutely do not. I don't want the water going in. So I need it. So when I wash the exterior of the house down, that the water is coming out of the house this way. So I'm going to have to bevel this in such a way that this is angled. Now let me show you what it looks like when I close the door. So I put the bottom door portion on, and here I am closing it. And I know you can't tell exactly how much pressure I'm doing, but there's a lot. There's a good amount of pressure there. That's making a really tight seal. Let me show you from the inside. All right, you can see from the inside that there's absolutely no sunlight coming through there. That is just a real tight seal all the way down. Make sure there's no sunlight coming through here in the corner. All right, I don't have that gasket all the way in the corner. There is sunlight right there, but that's only because I have the gasket not tied in. I wanted to figure out how much extra fat to put on there, so obviously I need to push that through, but I'll have that taken care of. But now what I need to do is make sure that the threshold, and there's two doors here, so it's a little challenging, but I need to make sure that it's not going to be rubbing too hard. I don't know, maybe it's a curse, maybe it's a blessing, because if it rubs too hard, this gasketing will just wear down until it finally reaches a sweet spot. So I'm just gonna, and I don't want it too tight, because then it's going to be very difficult to open and close the door every time you try to open and close the doors. Alright, this is what the threshold looks like so far. What I've done is I put a groove here. Let me see if I can show you the profile. Put a groove here, so this way it's when the door is shut, water comes here, it will be tapered down. I also put a 45-degree angle right here. Now I want to put a 45-degree angle here, but I'm going to have to put a piece of corner molding here to cover up this terrible flooring job where they got the gap to the old threshold. So because I don't know what height that quarter round is going to be, I don't want to cut this until I have that height, so I know I don't take off too much of this section here. Over here I didn't have to worry about that. So I'm at a stopping point. I have to get this piece of molding first, figure out the height of this, mark that off, and then I can put a some type of a rounded nose on top of this edge right here. So that's where I'm at. Let me show you what it looks like with the door closed. Okay, so when you shut the door, see right there is tight, and you'll see the way that I'm gonna smooth this down with sandpaper where that line is right there. But basically, when the water comes and sheds down and goes to this point here, this is at an angle, exiting the property. And of course I'm going to sand that down, make sure that just rolls out, rolls onto here, and then from here rolls out. So basically that's where I'm at. But that's kind of like what everything looks like so far. Okay, so what happened was I didn't like any of the thresholds that I was looking at. So what I ended up doing was I ended up going down to the Home Depot, purchasing a piece of 2x6 lumber by 8 feet, and then cutting it down and molding it and fitting it so that it is a replacement threshold. So that's what you're looking at right here. I also made a trim piece here, which I just cut out with my router. So this way, when I put the threshold in, this piece can sit right like that. And I'll show you that final install when I get to it. This piece of wood was really, really wet when I first got it. I got a moisture meter here. So you turn it on, and then on this model here, you got to push the mode button until that gets to soft wood, which is right there. Here's a piece of 2x6 just to give you an idea. Let's see, this particular one is showing 8-9%. I've had this one drying for 3 weeks and I got it down to 13%. So we're finally at the stage where I can stain it. I got some stain here. I'm going to use this wood stain here, Varathane. And then I got some wipe-on poly that I'm going to put 3 coats of that on. So my intention is to. So I've already got it so that it's molded and sanded and everything. But I've been drying it upstairs, actually in the attic, for 3 weeks to try to get it down to, because the moisture content was 53% to begin with on the meter. It was at 53. And now I got it down to, as you saw it there, it's about 12%, so we're fine. I got some 220 grit sandpaper, so I'm just going to give this a sand out right now. I've already done a dry fit with this, so I've got all my anchoring holes so I can screw it down. That's the bolt for the double doors, for the door, that non-operational door. So there's a bolt for it to go through in the threshold. Alright, so that's it. We're going to give this a sanding down right now with the 220, wipe it down, and then get the stain on it. Okay, here it is with one coat, and I couldn't quite see it before, but there's some scratches in here that I'm not exactly happy with. So right here is a good example, and also show you coming down here, kind of like right here, these scratches right there, and there's some here at the end that are also a little bit not good. So I think I'm going to need to sand this down in a little while, but I'm going to let it dry out first, and then go ahead and give it a sand. But that's what it looks like with just the first coat of the stain on it. But I want to get those sanding marks out. All right, it's been a couple hours, and there's some scratching right there that I want to remove, and also right here I want to work on this scratching. It's where I kind of did like a radius. If you look at it from a side profile, you can see how I made a radius when I was cutting this up. By the way, I used a table saw basically and a chop saw to form this into this threshold that you see here. So I've got some sand grit here. I got 100 grit. I was sanding down originally with this 220 product, but right now I'm just going to go over to this 100. I'm going to try to take out these scratch marks here. I'm going to try to get this cleaned up, sanding in the direction of the grain, and then hopefully that will look better. That totally feels like it's doing exactly what I want. The scratches are eliminated. I just need to give it another sanding. So I'm just going to continue with this same technique with the 100 grit all the way down, just to try to get this thing as clean, as scratch free as possible. Well, I must have been sanding this thing down for about 2 hours, I swear. It's taken me forever. I also cleaned up my holes where the screws are going to go through here. I went through like 2 pieces of sanding paper because it just totally gets clogged up, because I already had some stain that was already on the wood. But I've gone through, and by the way, I think the easiest way to see the scratches is I take a piece of paper towel from here and I wet it with some paint thinner, and then I go over it like this, and then I inspected it very closely to look for scratches. I'm at the point now where I don't see any scratches. I totally cleaned up the areas that were of concern, which was here by the screw holes, over in this area here. There were some areas, and I've totally got it to the point where I'm sick and tired of sanding, and I finally want to put some more stain on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Okay, here's a close-up, and you can see this looks a lot better here. So the areas that I got totally look better than previous. Now that I got this second coat of stain on here, I can see some scratch marks in the back. Let's see here. I don't know if it's going to pick it up, but I do notice right along this bead here some areas that look a little, oh, kind of scratched up. Let me see if I can show you here. Right there. Now it looks a little jacked up, but I'm telling you, I am so sick and tired of sanding this thing down. Don't feel like sanding it anymore, and I'm just going to keep going with it. This piece here is the trim piece that it's upside down right now, but basically it's going to go on like this, so it's going to cover a portion of this piece here anyways, the bottom portion. But anyways, that's this is kind of like what it looks like. That looks a little jacked up. I don't know why that looks like that. That looks funny. But I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna make it darker. It's too light, so I'm gonna put some more stain into this before I put on the wipe on poly. Actually, you can kind of see a little bit of a scratch mark right there. Right there. But like I said, I'm sick and tired of sanding this thing down. I am just gonna keep going with polyurethane. I'm sick and tired of sanding, and I'm gonna get going and get another coat on here, let it dry out, get this to the darkness that I want before I put on the polyurethane, which is right over here. Alright, this is what it looks like with 2 coats of stain. This coat, it's been sitting on here for a couple hours. Now I'm going to throw on another coat of this wood stain Polyurethane here, and just want to give it another coat. I want to darken it up a little bit more, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now, but I just wanted to show you, the audience, what it looks like in between coats. So here we go. Okay, I just re-stained it again. I don't know if the camera's picking it up. It doesn't. It looks moderately, and I mean very slightly darker. I was hoping to go even darker than this, so I might give it another coat of stain tomorrow. So I'm just going to let this sit overnight now and see what happens tomorrow. Maybe give it another coat, try to darken it up a little bit more. But that's what it looks like right now. Alright, here we are the next day. The stain has dried, and I'm going to put on another coat of stain right now and just show you the before and after. So here's the before, and hopefully this will be the last coat of stain, but just want to show it to you. Here it is, wet. It's like coat number 3. It's just applied the stain, so it's looks a little bit darker. It's probably going to be it, so I'm just going to let this dry out. Alright, the stain has been sitting on here now for about 15 minutes or so. I'm just going to take a paper towel here, a white clean paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe that stain off. Then I'm just going to let this dry for a couple hours before I put on the polyurethane. So I'm just trying to dry this out. I'm just trying to get what I'm trying to do is take off the top layer of stain, because I want the stain to go into the wood, not just sit on top of the wood. This is what it looks like after it's been wiped down, and that's going to be my last coat of stain. So I'm going to let this cure out for a couple hours before I apply the wipe on poly. I'm wondering if I should have used a preconditioner here. I did not use one, but I can see some splotchiness here, right there, and here, and that might have been because I didn't sand well enough. But once this is in place, I don't think anybody's going to notice any of that stuff, quite honestly. It's just a door threshold. It's not a piece of furniture. It's something you're going to walk on. So that's it. All right, so it's the next day, and I want to get my wipe-on poly here and put that on. And so I'm just looking at the wood, and what I'm seeing is some specks or like little small bubbles. Like right there's an example, but it's really all over. It's not too terrible, but I notice it. You have to kind of get up close to notice it, but it's definitely there, and I'm not sure why. I'm not a staining expert person here, and I don't know if it's the wood, if it's the stain, or what. So I got some 220 grit, and I did a test sample area right here, and I was able to take down the spots, but they are leaving behind a little bit of a, I don't know, like I can see where I've knocked it down, I guess. And I don't know if the wipe-on poly is gonna, if that's just gonna show right through, or exactly what's gonna happen. And it's not even that it's that noticeable or anything. I mean, when you're up here and you're just kind of looking at it, you know, just from 24 inches away, like right there, I don't think you really notice it. And maybe I'm just being, I don't know what, picky. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a light sanding with some 220 grit, knock that down, wipe it down, and then do a little test sample with the wipe-on poly and see what we got. All right, here's with a light sanding with 220 grit. It looks, I think it looks fine. I can definitely see not perfection right there as an example, but I don't want to keep messing with it. I don't know if the wipe-on poly is gonna blend that out. We'll see what it does. Let me get some wipe-on poly together and get that going, and see what we got. Got 2 coats of poly on, and they're dry. I got to put on another coat. Should be coat number 3. Piece is not looking bad. I can see some blotchiness, maybe is the word. Maybe I should have used a preconditioner. I probably should have. My inexperience is what, you know, I didn't know. And I guess in retrospect I regret not putting it on. I think the piece is still going to look fine. When you look at it from here, it looks fine. It's just when you get right up on it, you can see a little bit of spots. But I'm going to go ahead and give it another coat right now of this product. Okay, we're out here the following day. There's 3 coats of wipe-on poly on the threshold, and it's actually looking real good. There's a few spots here, like you can still see some spots like right there, but that other spotting that I was noticing here is gone. It's like the wipe-on poly just melted it right into the piece of wood. I do see some spotting here. This is where like a preconditioner probably would have been better, and I should have used that. But still, the results are not bad. There's one scratch that is noticeable right there, but you got to get in real tight in order to see it. Pan back, you don't really notice it. And the piece is looking, pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a light sanding right now of some 220 grit. And then I'm going to give it 3 more coats of wipe-on poly today. You have to wait 4 hours in between each coat for it to dry. And then after all that, by tomorrow, it should be ready for install. So that's the game plan. Light sanding, and then another coat, three coats of wipe-on poly today, and then tomorrow install. Okay, it's been over 4 hours. The 4th coat of poly is on. It's dry right now. I'm going to give it another coat. When I sanded down, I forgot to sand this down with my 220 grit, so I'm going to sand this down right now with the 220 grit and sand that real quick, and then wipe this down, this one over here, and then give them both another coat of poly. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, it's been about 4 hours. The coat of poly on there is dry. That's 5 coats right now in total. I'm going to go ahead and give it one more last coat and then call it a day. Its piece is looking very, very, very beautiful. I think it looks really nice. This particular poly, by the way, is the clear satin, and you can see we've got sort of a matte finish here, which I think is just absolutely gorgeous. I'm also polying underneath here just to put a little bit of protection underneath, so this way it doesn't absorb moisture coming in from the bottom, because it's going to be touching the slab. So I'm putting some polyurethane also on the bottom. Alright, so that's it. Let's give it the last coat. We are back the next day. It's got 6 coats of wipe-on poly on it. I think the piece looks absolutely beautiful. You know, I also put the poly on underneath just to give it a little protection because that's going to be against the concrete. And here's the trim piece that's going to basically go right like this here. And we're going to put this in while holding that down. I'm going to be using these nails right here, which are 1.5 inch zinc. There's the nail right there. I'm going to pre-drill with my smallest drill bit, which is 1/16 of an inch. And what else? And that's it. We're actually ready to do the install. I think the piece looks really nice. I mean, look how pretty it looks. It's going to look fabulous as the Threashold. Absolutely going to look gorgeous. So we got to get this puppy in. We'll get over to the door. We have the new Threashold here, just sitting on the floor, ready to be installed. We're over here at the double doors. I'm going to have to take this door off of its hinge because in order to get the Threashold out, I won't do it. Here's the existing Threashold, the one that I'm replacing. You can see here, let me step on it. See how bad that thing is deflecting? I mean, it's just a piece of trash. It's just junk. Also, you'll notice how they have a gap right there that's exposed. The people that did this installation, who put the floor in, they didn't put a piece of trim. And I guess because it's an aluminum Threashold, there is not a, I don't know, I guess they could have done something, but they didn't. But we're going to put a piece of trim in there and clean that edge up too. So, first thing I'm going to do is get this thing off the hinges right now. Alright, so you've got the old Threashold here, you got the new Threashold sitting in here, but it's not screwed in yet. So I have my screws right here, and these are just wood screws that are number 12 by 3 inches long, and these have already are mating with the cement anchors that are in the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and put each one of these in now before we put the trim piece in last. Here is the screws. I got them all seated in there real flush and tight. So now I'm just going to take a black Sharpie, and I'm just going to take and go around the top of the screw head like this, just to darken that up so it'll blend in with this as much as possible. So when you're looking at it like this, there's the original one, there's that one, so it just doesn't stand out as much. So I'm going to go around and do all of them right now. Alright, all the screw heads are touched up. I'll get that one a little bit better, but they're all blackened up just to try to blend them in as much as possible. Now here you can see the large gap that I've created with this new Threashold compared to where the floor is. It's much more, actually it's more pronounced with this Threashold than it was with the old Threashold. That's where this trim piece is now going to come in place. So we're going to take this large gap that you see there, put this piece over it and make sure it's centered from left to right, and then I'm going to pre-drill it with the small screw so I don't crack this here, and then put these 1.5 inch nails in. So here we go. Okay, so I just secured that one nail right there, and I'm going to basically do that one more time there, one here, one, and then probably 2 more here. So probably 3, 4, 5 in total for the whole for this whole trim piece to hold it in place solid, so I don't have to worry about anything happening. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in right now. Okay, here you go. You can see the nice trim pieces put in, and it's solidly anchored into the threshold, nailed with 5 nails, and it's not going anywhere. And you'll notice that gap is completely disappeared, so that trim piece really was beneficial to close that gap. Okay, next thing for me to do is to put the door back on. Okay, so I've got the door on, and I've just put the bottom, I'm not sure what to call it, but that piece right there, that the door sweep, where it's going to make the door seal to the new threshold, I've got that on, but not screwed in yet. It's just sitting there loose. And I put the latch bolt that is right there, I put it down so the door is physically latched into the threshold. Now what I'm going to do is hold that in place while I screw it down, and I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so right now that door sweep is in and screwed down. So an important thing to check is when you're operating the door, make sure that it latches in this bolt properly and everything. It's the door is closing real easy, so I want to make sure it's not too easy. Make sure the top latch works. Okay, so all that's good. Let's go ahead and close this door. Now let's look to see if there's any air. Oh, and there is. So we're going to have to lower this down. You can see right there, pretty good gap. So we're going to have to lower that down because we don't want that. We don't want that air seal to be. We want it to be like this door here, tight. So over here, we got to loosen that up and bring that down. Let's do that right now. All right. So what we want to do is I want to loosen up these 3 screws, maybe all 4. See if I can't get this to drop. To make up that difference. This one here is loose anyways. Okay, we're coming down. We're making some progress here. Let me just double check this. Okay, that's not bad. That looks like a seal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-drill in a screw hole here, trying to get some a good seal. And then let's try to see if that'll take a screw and keep us tight. Okay, let me try the door. go inside and see if we've got good coverage before we screw the other ones in. No daylight going through there now. That actually looks pretty good. A little, I can see a small amount maybe where the screw is, where I got the screws anchored in, but certainly not bad. It's a pretty good seal. Trying to get as tight as possible. So I'm going to put the other screws in right now. On the inside, it looks pretty sharp. Not bad. When you open up the door, this is how it looks like. And it's nice and solid. That's just a really, it's a solid piece of wood. It's a 2x6 is what it is, so we know that that's not going to go anywhere. Alright, let's get these screw holes in. I want to pre-drill because I want it to be precise. Now that I'm out here looking at the threshold so much, the door needs to be restained. So there's another project that I got to do, but for now we'll just leave that be. I think the threshold looks really nice. You can see the fact, instead of painting it and going with the stain, it gives it a lot more flavor and bling. I mean, that is just sharp. Open that up and it looks just really nice. It came out, the job came out beautiful. Okay, that is going to conclude this project. I hope that you learned some tips from it. I am not a woodworking or staining expert, so even with a person with my skills, which is just basic DIY skills, I am not a master carpenter, as you can tell in the video. But still, the final project came out good. At least I'm very satisfied with the way the final project came out. So please, if you like the video, click on like. If you didn't like the video, please leave a comment in the comment section why you didn't like it. Check out my channel, subscribe, Ken Training, and I will catch you on the flip side.